What's going on, everybody? It is Overreaction Time once again. I'm your host, Simon Samano, and welcome to this edition of the show. It's a special edition of the show because look who we got with us this week. It is the guy who's always down to throw some chingazos, none other than Danny Segura. Danny, what's good, man?
Excited to finally be on the show, at least officially, and to see what you have in store for me. So, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on the show. Obviously, we got a big week coming up with UFC 309 and the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. And honestly, that's what we're going to be talking about this episode. So you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Kamikaze, you know what time it is. Hit it.
Are you guys that fucking stupid? You can't be that fucking stupid.
MMA Junkie AI.
Who gives a shit? One of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life. Fucking common sense. Everybody knows that.
All right, Danny, we're going to start at the very top this week with UFC 309, where it's finally happening. It's finally going to happen. Jon Jones is going to fight Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship. And if you heard me last week on this show, you heard me say that Stipe Miocic has no chance of beating Jon Jones. I'm going to take this a step further now, Danny. You ready? Jon Jones will finish Stipe Miocic, no doubt about it.
Oof. I think there's going to be a finish. I think there's going to be a finish on either side. And yeah, most likely is going to come.
Either side?
Yeah, most likely is going to come on Jon Jones' side. But I would say be careful out there because Jon Jones, I feel like he's been this guy that's obviously done so much for the sport, but a lot of that is in the past. Yes, he is currently the UFC heavyweight champion, but has fought once in 3 years. And that one fight was kind of questionable against Cyril Gane, who took the fight on short notice, didn't really seem to be all that ready and seemed to be just a breeze for Jon Jones. So we didn't even get to see a ton of Jon Jones. So Jon Jones should win this. He should get a finish. But if Stipe Miocic somehow was able to kind of maintain some of his form, I don't know. There could be a surprise in there. Again, I think it's very small, but to say 100% in the heavyweight division, I don't know. Always be careful with that one.
You calling this an overreaction? Are you calling this an overreaction?
Yeah, I am. I think you got to keep a degree in there for the heavyweight punch. That lucky punch or that puncher's chance gets multiplied by 10 at heavyweight. And keep in mind, Stipe Miocic is a guy that stylistically in his prime, I think he would have been a tough fight for Jon Jones. Neither guy is in his prime. I think Stipe is definitely farther down the hill. But yeah, again, I don't want now the chat to overreact, but listen. I expect the finish. I expect Jon Jones to win, but I don't know, man. It's still heavyweight.
Listen, man. The last time we saw Stipe in the cage, he got smashed by Francis Ngannou years ago. Okay, what's the first thing that goes as you get older? What's the first thing that goes, Danny? Your chin. Your chin is the first thing that goes. Stipe hasn't taken a punch from anybody in over 3.5 years, man. In over 3.5 years. And I know he's been a tough and a durable fighter throughout his career, but he was already showing signs of slowing down 3.5 years ago. He was already showing those signs. Now he's 42 years old. I mean, I don't even think Jon Jones needs to land something heavy to really even just stun him, you know? Land something that's solid. It doesn't even have to be that heavy at the right angle. You know, Jon Jones works his angles. He's got a fight IQ that's through the roof. He always has his entire career. And all he's got to do really is land something solid. That's it. Something solid against a Stipe Miocic who's going to be much slower than he's ever been in his career. I know Jon Jones coming off of the injury and stuff, but dude, I mean, he's still Jon Jones. He's still 37. He's still 5 years younger. I expect Jon Jones to get this finish, and I don't think there's any question that that's how this fight's going to end.
Oh, man, I'm just always afraid to be that confident at heavyweight. And again, this is not just some random dude. It is Stipe Miocic. Again, my official pick on the MMA Junkie staff picks is Jon Jones. I do expect him to finish, but we also don't know a lot about Jon Jones. I feel like a lot of people are banking on, the heavyweight champion, this and that. But again, that victory, I think, was a little bit suspect. He hasn't fought in a while.
Which victory? The one over Cyril Gane? Huh? The victory over Cyril Gane? What was suspect about it?
Cyril Gane, the circumstances, right? He took that fight on a bit of short notice. It was kind of makeshift. It seemed just style-wise, it was like a perfect fight for him as well. Cyril Gane literally had no resistance in that fight, which was extremely odd. Didn't even defend that submission. So like the body of work that we have of Jon Jones, not only at heavyweight, but this version of Jon Jones, post-pandemic Jon Jones, it's very small. It's very small. Don't be surprised if he goes out there and looks completely washed.
Jon Jones looking completely wild?
Yeah. I think
crazy?
it's possible. I think it's possible. Don't let Dana White's, if he goes in a room, he's gonna come out over everybody, whatever. Don't let that
No, this isn't about Dana. This isn't about that.
There's questions, just as many questions as there are around Stipe Miocic. I think there are also a lot of questions about Jon Jones that people are not asking.
Well, unfortunately, if you think there's a lot of questions about Jon Jones, I'm not sure they're going to get answered because I just don't think Stipe is going to be up for it. Again, dude, it's been 3.5 years. He's 42 years old. I don't see this going well. So listen, you think it's overreaction, but I'm telling you right now, we're going to get a Jon Jones finish on Saturday night at UFC 309. All right. You remember, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. You didn't hear it here first. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who think it, but you heard it here. Okay. All right, man. Listen, we're going to move on though, but we're not really going to move on because I'm going to hit you with the next thing related to this fight. All right. I think I have a feeling where you're gonna land on this one, considering what you just thought was an overreaction. Jon Jones's legacy will take a hit if he loses to Stipe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it'll. Any loss always affects a fighter's legacy, the way he or she is perceived among the public. But I think the label of still the greatest fighter of all time, he probably still keeps that. Maybe if he loses the George St. Pierre conversation, maybe bumping up to number one gets a little bit closer. And I think maybe you can do that. But still, I mean, if you're the greatest or the second greatest of all time, it's still pretty damn good. So yeah, it definitely takes a hit, but no matter what happens on Saturday, Jon Jones is a future UFC Hall of Famer. Jon Jones is one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I mean, Jon Jones' legacy at this point is pretty much set, unless he goes on like a BJ Penn run, God forbid. More or less, people will see him with the same eyes, I think.
I mean, I said last week that Stipe has no chance. I just told you that there's no doubt that he's going to get a finish. So to me, there's no doubt that if he loses this fight, his legacy is going to take a hit. I mean, I've warned against this fight. And here's the thing. I understand that in Jon's, the reason why we're not getting Tom Aspinall against Jon Jones on Saturday night is because Jon thinks this is a legacy fight. This is a fight for his legacy. All right. But here's the thing. My counter to that, there's no upside to beating Stipe on Saturday. Do you think there's any upside to beating Stipe? Is there any upside to beating a slower, older 42-year-old? Sure, granted, he's considered the greatest heavyweight of all time, but what's it matter if you're beating him, this late in his career? I mean, is there any upside? I think there's only downside in this fight for Jon Jones.
I think right now it may look that way because we're in a very cloudy spot right now in the UFC heavyweight division. And obviously, Tom Aspinall's rise is definitely rubbing a lot of people the wrong way in the sense that Jon Jones is not fighting him, and instead he's fighting a 42-year-old that hasn't fought in 3 years. But I think just having him on his record looks nice. Having that Stipe Miocic next to it on Wikipedia green looks nice. I think right now it might seem like a suspect fight. And I agree, he should be fighting Tom Aspinall, but in a year or two, once we look back on his career, it's still Stipe Miocic, and it's gonna look good. I mean, you see it all the time. Like all these fighters develop records, and they beat this and so and so and so and so, and it looks good, right? Like maybe at the moment it doesn't, but having the name always on your resume of Stipe Miocic has to help. So I do think it improves his legacy a little bit more. Not a ton, but I think it weighs.
It does nothing. It does nothing. There's so much.
Especially Stipe is able to like create some magic and kind of look decent, and look like close to a prime version of himself, which it's not impossible. But
you think if we got a 5-round war, you think a 5-round war is going to help?
And
Jon
Stipe
Jones
looks
legacy?
good, and Jon Jones wins it, like gets like a late finish, but Stipe manages to like not embarrassing himself. I think we're going to be talking about how great Jon Jones is. Yeah.
If this fight goes 5 rounds, it's going to be a boring 5 rounds. Let me just tell you that much right now. I don't see a 5-round war happening. If this goes 5 rounds, it's just a methodical sort of tactical, Jones doesn't want to get too close, doesn't want to get caught, but he's punching from the outside and, scoring left and right on Stipe. That's what it's going to be.
Also, I think we're too in the bubble, and not to take a hit our audience as well, but I think they're too in the bubble as well. I'll give you an example. Just a few days ago, my brother, who is a former MMA fan, he used to be a huge hardcore, no longer, but he'll tune in every now and then to like Pereira and some of the bigger names and whatnot. He goes, "Oh, Jon Jones is going to be fighting this weekend against Stipe Miocic. That's such a great fight." And I'm like, he's 42 and he hasn't fought in like 3 years. And he's like, "Oh, really?" I think there's a lot of people that still see Stipe Miocic in high regard. And I still think once you roll out the accolades, and there's a reason why they're on that poster, and I'm sure the broadcast is going to do a great job at reminding you of that.
Sure.
I think in a lot of people's mind, this is going to be, oh my God, Jon Jones is the best of all time. Huge win. What he's doing is just unfathomable. It's just unreal. I think to you and me and the people watching this show, we're going to be like, yeah, but.
Yeah, well, you forget DC's on the call for this fight, so it may not be complete Jon Jones glazing on the broadcast with DC on the call.
That's going to be an interesting storyline as well. I'm sure he's going to be under the microscope for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll just say this one last. My final thought here is, again, I understand why Jon Jones wants this fight over Tom Aspinall. I understand the cosmetics and the optics of it. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time against the guy that people widely consider, not me, but widely considered to be the greatest fighter of all time. But this is like Mayweather and Pacquiao happening 5 years past their primes, like that fight still happened. And yeah, it was cool, I guess, but that fight lost a lot of its luster. This fight just doesn't have a lot going for it. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I would say it's even worse than the Pacquiao and
Mayweather,
because at least they were superstars in their own right at that time, and they were still world champions. Probably, maybe not Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao had taken that knockout loss to blanking on who right now. But anyways, they were fighting. They were active. These guys are not that very active, and not only that, but like you got Aspinall on the wings. You got Ngannou as well, killing it with his PFL debut. There's a lot of other people that we can point to and say they're the baddest man on the planet rather than these two fighting on the weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we still agree to disagree here, or you do think he's going to take a hit? Legacy takes a hit if he loses? Yeah. Legacy takes a hit. Yeah, we know it does. Okay. All right, man. We're going to move to the next thing, but we're still talking about Jon Jones, just so you know, okay? Jon Jones has come out in an interview with Kevin Iole. He made his intentions clear, and I think in other interviews too, besides Kevin Iole, he did a few, that he would like that if there's anybody after this who excites him, it's Alex Pereira. And so I know we just talked about how it should be Tom Aspinall getting this title unification bout on Saturday night, but I'm gonna hit you with this one now, Danny. I'm sorry, Tom Aspinall, but Jon Jones definitely should fight Alex Pereira if he wins at UFC 309. The look on your face, does it say it all?
Yeah. Overreaction. Are you kidding me? Tom Aspinall is the guy. Look, if Jon Jones is not going to fight anymore, then fine. But if he is, it has to be Tom Aspinall. And it'll just look so silly on the UFC to have this interim title, not only one defended.
You think the UFC cares about looking silly?
Just making the sport looking silly, like up to a certain extent, yes. I think they get away with.
You think the UFC cares about making the sport of MMA look silly?
I think to a certain point, yes. But I think at this point, like, it's just ridiculous. There's just no way you can make, unless he vacates the belt. Okay, fine. If he vacates the heavyweight belt and goes fights Poatan and it'll do massive numbers, fine. I'm okay with that because you know what? I'll watch that. It'll be a very exciting fight, and that's something that interests me a lot. But if he plans on doing a title defense against Poatan and letting go of the heavyweight title, and keeping the heavyweight title, no, that is completely ridiculous. Poatan versus Jon Jones under no circumstance should happen for a heavyweight title. We have Tom Aspinall waiting on the wings. Not only has won an interim title, but defended it. To have another challenger go up that's not named Tom Aspinall is absolutely blasphemy. It's ridiculous. You're tripping on that one.
So you would be down with the fight if he vacated the title, because Jon Jones made it clear he's all about legacy. Yeah. And I understand. Listen, I understand why he would want.
He's not defending the title against Pereira. He's not.
No. Okay. So here's the thing. I thought. Let me tell you where I'm coming with this. I thought Jon Jones made a really good point in the interview with Kevin Iole. he brought up Johnny Walker. And I don't know if you watched the interview, but he brought up Johnny Walker because if you remember 5-6 years ago, when Johnny Walker burst on the scene, he was about 2-3 fights in, and we were talking, and there was a lot of people. And I'll say I was like kind of like, this would be interesting. There's a lot of people who are like, Johnny Walker, he could be the guy to challenge Jon Jones in the light heavyweight division. Why? Because he was tall, he was long, he was creative, he was all those things. And look how his career fizzled out. That's the point that Jon Jones made, and I get it. We're talking now. Don't get me wrong. Tom Aspinall is much further along in his career. He is an established UFC interim heavyweight champion. All right, but I understand the here today, gone tomorrow argument. Whereas Alex Pereira, dude, Poatan might be one of the 10 or 15 greatest UFC fighters of all time right now already. So I understand wanting to have that fight at heavyweight for your legacy. Yes or no? You don't see that?
I understand him wanting to have that fight because it's a lot easier than fighting Tom Aspinall. I mean, you're talking about a former middleweight here. That like what, a year ago was a middleweight, and I know he's a big guy and whatnot, but it's just ridiculous. Like if he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall next for the heavyweight title, and it's Poatan instead. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna riot on social media. Yeah, I'm just going to go crazy. It is ridiculous. The only reason why he would want the Poatan fight is because Poatan has got, not the greatest wrestling or wrestling defense. Like that
stand-up
right
fight.
there.
But he wouldn't have very much of a reach advantage. The stand-up fight would be intriguing. You have to admit that would be an intriguing matchup.
Tom Aspinall is infinitely a tougher fight for Jon Jones than Alex Pereira. The only reason why he would be interested in that fight is because of that. Tom Aspinall right now beats Jon Jones' ass. I'm telling you.
You're trying to say Jon Jones is scared of Tom Aspinall?
I don't think he's scared of him. I think if Tom Aspinall were to disrespect him, or if they were at the local pub and then there were a disagreement there, Jon Jones would have no problem throwing down with Tom Aspinall, and he could maybe beat Tom Aspinall. But in terms of a fight, like a sanctioned fight, I don't think he's scared specifically of Tom Aspinall, but he's scared of taking a hit to his legacy, walking away on a defeat. And he looks at Tom Aspinall, and I think he sees a very formidable guy that could very well hand him a loss.
Well, I will say this, separate of the fact that I think at this point I would like to see Poatan against Jones over Aspinall versus Jones, but I'll take either one. I'm so impressed with Alex Pereira that fight with Jon Jones is just too intriguing for me. That I would, if there's only one more, that's the one I want. But if it ends up being Aspinall, I won't be disappointed. And I will say, going for you, I think Jon Jones, if everyone's saying that he's ducking and he's been very active on social media for the last couple of days, responding to the people who are calling him a duck, right? Who are calling him a chicken. I actually think that bothers him. Fans may goad Jon Jones into fighting Tom Aspinall. They may goad him into it. It may work. So if you're watching the show, keep it up because that might work. You might get the fight you want. It's pretty clear that Jon Jones cares what you guys think.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Tom Aspinall is going to do at UFC 309, and if he's even going to attempt to get in the cage and try to do something, show up at the presser. Yeah. I don't know, kind of like a Canelo moment, something. He's got to do something if he wants to get a fight with Jon Jones.
All right, man. Well, we'll see what happens after 309, but we know what's going to happen here is that Jon Jones is going to win. He's going to win in the first round, and then he's going to fight Alex Pereira afterwards. No, I'm kidding. We'll see. We'll find out. Okay, dude. Let's move on to the next thing. I want to talk about the co-main event at UFC 309 between Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler, which, of course, is a rematch of a title fight that happened a couple years ago between the two of them a few years ago now. It's been a while since that fight. 2021, was it? 2021, I believe it was. But anyways, we're getting it again. It's definitely an intriguing fight. And, of course, this is coming off of Michael Chandler taking a long voluntary leave of absence as he waited for Conor McGregor, but he finally moved on. We got this rematch. I'm pretty excited about it. And if you heard Michael Chandler speak, he said that he ran into Jon Jones at UFC 306 at the Sphere. He said they said hi. He took a picture. They said, hey, man, you saved the excitement for me because I'm the main event. And I'm like, yeah, probably not, man. I'm coming to steal the show. Michael Chandler coming to steal the show, dude. So I'm here to tell you, dude, I believe him. Michael Chandler will steal the show at UFC 309.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's an overreaction. As you mentioned, the Jon Jones fight versus Stipe Miocic could be actually kind of boring with neither guy wanting to commit too much, given that it is heavyweight and anything can happen. And Jon Jones, it looks like right now, at least giving some of his life decisions, and the fact that perhaps in the last year or so he hasn't gotten into much trouble. It seems he's being very careful with how he places things. Yeah, that's completely the opposite approach of Michael Chandler. Like, a title could be on the line. I mean, there was a title on the line when he fought Charles Oliveira, as you mentioned, and he's still going to throw the kitchen sink. He's still going to be a bit careless just for excitement's sake. So that's very much appreciated from Chandler. We know that Charles Oliveira is kind of cut from the same cloth, a little bit more technical. This could very well be fight of the night, and don't be surprised if it's fight of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. And when I say Michael Chandler stealing the show, I think you just touched on it. Win or lose, I think he could steal the show. That's the thing. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to steal the show by beating Charles Oliveira. I mean, that very well could happen. It was, the last fight, that first round went Michael Chandler's way, and then he got caught in the second round. But win or lose, he made it very clear when he joined the UFC that he's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. And I think Saturday night is going to be a hell of a good time, especially with the long layoff. You know how hungry he's going to be. So what do you think? Do you think it's going to go his way, or you think it's going to go Oliveira's way? Is it stealing the show with the win, or stealing the show because he really just puts himself out there, and maybe it's Oliveira who is the beneficiary of his sort of, crazy attack?
Yeah, I mean, this can go either way with the power that Chandler has, and how much how aggressive his style is. Like, you can't rule him out of any fight whatsoever. But who is the more technical fighter? I do think Charles Oliveira is, and I think when it comes to predicting fights, sometimes you side with the bigger guy, with the guy that's a little bit more prepared, or maybe if the guy didn't take a short notice fight or whatever. But usually technique wins fights. Technique is the king in this sport. So I think Charles Oliveira does have the upper hand. I expect him to win, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Michael Chandler is able to pick up a victory. I will say this, on top of me thinking that Oliveira is a better fighter, I do wonder about those 2 years, man. 2 years sitting on the sidelines waiting on McGregor. Sure. He's what now? 38 years of age? 38. Jesus. That at lightweight is not good. And I know he takes care of his body and is always training. And that certainly has kept him his extended his shelf life. But will it be enough to defeat a Charles Oliveira? I don't think so. I think this is going to be a more dominant fight from Charles Oliveira's perspective than the first one.
Yeah, and it's not that Michael Chandler isn't a technical fighter. He's probably just as technical of a fighter as Charles Oliveira when he wants to be. And he's made it pretty clear since he joined the UFC, he has no interest in, using his wrestling and being technical. I mean, he's just an action fighter at this point. So, still the show, win or lose, that's happening at UFC 309. We agree.
Yes,
we agree on that one. All right, man. Moving on to the next thing. One more thing about UFC 309. We've got the return of Bo Nickal happening on Saturday night. Bo Nickal is fighting Paul Craig on the main card of UFC 309. And so let me just go ahead and hit you with this one here, man. Bo Nickal is poised to have a breakout performance at UFC 309.
Not an overreaction whatsoever. Bo Nickal is the future of the sport, and they're giving him a main card spot here, and they're giving him Paul Craig, who I don't know if he's still in the rankings, but
he's not.
He was. So he's a formerly ranked fighter that was there fairly recent. So this is a good step up. Paul Craig is probably what, maybe not top 15, as we mentioned.
He's out of it. He's out of it. Top 20. Yeah, probably top 20.
So, it's a solid win. I mean, the guy has a freaking win over Ankalaev in a few other, Jamal Hill. Like, the guy's career is quite weird. He's kind of like the Michael Johnson of middleweight, light heavyweight, whatever you want to call it, where he has this crazy wins over, former champions, but like has kind of underachieved, but not really. I don't know. But yes, Bo Nickal, I think he's destined for greatness. For a while now, like people at American Top 10, before he even got to fight in the UFC, they've been telling me like, dude, this guy is legit. Like, this guy's going to get good fast. And as promised, he's been killing it in the UFC. So yeah, I expect him to shine and get a big win. Can I reverse the roles here for a second, Simon?
Oh, sure. Go for it. You're going to hijack my show?
I'm going to hijack your show, and I'm going to bring a hot take. You tell me if this is an overreaction. UFC should have booked Bo Nickal against Chris Weidman on this card.
Oh, wow. I don't
All-American versus All-American. passing of the torch of the American torch per se.
I would have been all about that. I mean, we are getting towards the end of Chris Weidman's career. I don't know how many more fights he has left. Could this be the
Former
last
champion?
one? Yeah, I mean, you talk about using someone's name to, to put someone over. That would have been something, but I don't know, man. I kind of feel like UFC probably respects Chris Weidman enough not to throw him in there with Bo Nickal. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I'm thinking. But listen, circling back to Bo Nickal having his breakout performance against Paul Craig, you remember they put him on UFC 300, right? And remember, it was very questionable that they put him on the UFC 300 main card, to open up the 300 main card. There were so many other stacked, it was a stacked card, so many other good fights on the prelims and early prelims. But they put him on the 300 main card to open it against Cody Brundage. You remember what Bo Nickal did after he subbed Cody Brundage? Do you remember what he did immediately afterwards? The 2 thumbs down. He gave himself 2 thumbs down, dude. He did not like his performance. And I'm willing to bet that he's gone back with Mike Brown and the coaches at American Top Team, and he's probably worked even more extensively on his hands. That's what this showcase is going to be all about for Bo Nickal on Saturday night, in my opinion. It's going to be for him to showcase his hands. I think his wrestling is going to be a last resort in this fight. And I think the Brundage fight, he showed a little bit of, okay, I still have work to do in the stand-up game. And that's what I think he's been doing. He talked about taking the slow route, right? He's done interviews where he's like, I'm not interested in just going straight to the top. I want to take the slow route. This is an important step. This is going to be a breakout performance standing for Bo Nickal. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's an overreaction. Look, if you want to exchange and practice your hands against anybody in the UFC, or at least in the UFC middleweight division, it's against Paul Craig. I mean, the guy has gotten a little bit better in the striking in recent years, but he's not really a knockout threat. So even if he gets tagged up, like, it'll be fine, and he can kind of just work his rhythm. And if he doesn't, fine, just go to the wrestling. And interestingly enough, Paul Craig off his back is where he's most dangerous. So I think this is a fight that's going to remain standing, and I think Bo Nickal's going to knock him out.
And that's probably why you don't get a Chris Weidman versus Bo Nickal fight, because you probably end up with a wrestling match.
I think that fight would actually be fun on paper, like fun scrambles, fun little striking battle. I think it'll be very similar, if it ever happens, to when Adesanya fought Anderson Silva. A little bit of a passing over the torch where it doesn't look ugly, but clearly the younger guy is the better one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to see Bo Nickal on Saturday night. And I fully expect the breakout performance, but let's check it out on Saturday. All right. All right. We're going to move on. One more thing to talk about here, Danny. UFC 309 is on Saturday. The appetizer on Friday is Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Ooh, look at the look on your face right there. It's the look at this. Look what this is doing to you physically, man. I mentioned Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, and look what it's done to you physically before I even gave you anything. All right. So here's what I'll hit you with. Okay. Mike Tyson is about to embarrass himself against Jake Paul.
Yes. And I say it with a broken heart. I've seen I believe Gorgeous George has been saying that Tyson's going to knock out Paul, if I'm not mistaken, or I don't know if he's changed his opinion on that, but yeah, what's he smoking? I want some of that. This fight shouldn't be happening. It's an embarrassment. I can't believe it's being sanctioned. We still don't even know. Is it a fully pro fight? I feel like it details.
That's been reported. I believe it's been reported that it will count against their records.
It will, but like, will it be like full on regular size gloves, no headgear type thing?
That's according to. Let's look it up. Let's check this out. Paul versus Tyson rules.
I feel like the details around that has been, and they shaped the rounds so that they're not as long, so it's not really a regular professional boxing fight from what I understand.
Here you go. You ready? I got this for you. The rounds will last 2 minutes, so they're a minute shorter than the standard 3-minute rounds.
Yes.
The boxing gloves are 14 ounces rather than the standard 10-ounce gloves.
Makes sense.
That's it. That's what we got. It is a pro fight. It is a pro fight that will count against their record, even though it has non-traditional rules. Yeah, I mean, that's the Texas Commission for you, dude.
Yeah, so there are some things that have been in place to kind of put a soft landing, I guess, for Mike Tyson. But look, the dude is one of the baddest man to ever lived. I mean, the guy's a complete savage, and I'd be scared of him today. But he is 58 years old, going on 60. Like
8, dude. I mean, we can't. I can't. You think I was gonna arrive at a different conclusion about this fight? I just got done telling you how Stipe Miocic at 42 fighting Jon Jones is ridiculous. You know, like you think we're gonna get here, and I'm gonna think otherwise. I mean, dude, Mike Tyson.
what is he doing?
How's he doing, man? I mean, and look, with Jake Paul, I just remember thinking when Jake Paul was about to fight Ben Askren, I actually was in the in the group that thought, ooh, he's finally, because before the Ben Askren fight, he was fighting only influencers, right? It only been like a handful of influencers. And then he was gonna fight Ben Askren. You're like, ooh, yeah, Ben Askren's a wrestler, but he's an actual fighter. He's about to expose Jake Paul. And then look how silly that was, right? I remember thinking the same thing even afterwards when he fought Tyron Woodley. You know, oh man, no, here's a guy who's got hands. You know, and then look how silly we looked. Anybody who thought that, look how silly you looked. You know, I mean, now he's gonna fight a 58-year-old, you know, Mike Tyson. I understand. We all love Mike Tyson as a fighter from back in the day, but I don't know if you think Mike Tyson is gonna starch Jake Paul because of the things he did before Jake Paul was even born. You're out of your damn mind.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, just rewind 4 years ago. Remember that Mike Tyson had an exhibition against Roy Jones Jr., who was also in his 50s. I believe he's older actually than Mike Tyson, or about the same age. But at the time, he was in his 50s. And Mike Tyson didn't look all that great. Fast forward 4 years later, and against the guy that's much younger and better physically, like Roy Jones Jr. just looked. I mean, he's probably a dad. I don't know if he has any kids or not, but full on dad bod. No, but Jake Paul is actually a decent boxer. He hits very, very hard. And I'm actually very concerned here for Mike Tyson. And anybody that tells you otherwise, like, man, I don't like this at all.
No, me neither, man. The 31-year difference, the concerns about the ulcer that flared up, which canceled this fight, you know, several months ago, earlier this year. So we know we know Mike Tyson has health issues. It's just absolutely crazy that this fight is even happening. I guess we'll see.
It's gross.
How entertaining it is on Friday night. We'll see how filled, you know, Jerry World is. They're doing this fight at Cowboy Stadium. You know, are they going to get 50, 60,000 people there? I mean, how many people are going to actually be in attendance? It's a complete spectacle. I think this is full boxing circus mode, man, at this point. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I just hope everything turns out okay for Mike.
Don't be surprised if Jake Paul carries him.
Yeah. 100%. 100%, man. All right. Well, we see eye to eye there. But, you know, good luck to Mike on Friday night against Jake Paul. All right, man. Well, the time for overreacting has come to an end, dude. Do you enjoy your time on the show?
Yeah. Always a good time. You bring some moderate takes, some others quite crazy. I had to check you there on a few.
Never know what you're gonna get from me, okay, on this show. All right, but we'll have you on again soon, Danny. And for everybody who watched this long, I appreciate you, and we will see you next week on the show. Take it easy.
MMA Junkie AI.